but he was right. It was honest in what he said.
I,
Uh,
I I have a problem with him labeling everything as if you do something of less effect than other vegans do, then that somehow makes you vegan. I have a problem with that. And
yeah,
I think that's like I noticed that he kept having these arguments and conversations with other vegans about this very issue because other vegans don't like it.
mm,
I don't think that it's right at all to say that people who eat a meat product are somehow vegan. That seems to totally take away what
yeah,
veganism means, what words mean. So Carson's making an argument out of bias, which essentially um, the things that he likes, he's going to try to jam into this category because he's under the belief and assumption that veganism can never be proved wrong or debunked.
yeah.
And so he has to change his whole definition of veganism in order for it to fit that.
Well, okay, so no. I mean, sort of yes and no, but not exactly. I think the original, whatever original means, um, the definition somewhat fits it. But the original, so when you go back to the original word vegan, is created in 1944. Donald Watson. There was a definition that basically referred to what you consume. You don't consume animals or animal products, essentially. And this was connected. This was the Vegan Society, and it was the definition of what makes you a member of this society. Now, the Vegetarian Society that this spawned from was what happened before that. And so this was a kind of an answer to trying to further the Vegetarian Society to a more moral stance, so cutting out the dairy and the eggs. The Vegetarian Society stance, for a long time, so even like 100 years before the word vegan came into it, they were focused on things like not using leather and various different things that animals had to die to make. So the further you go back, the more you look at it, it's complicated. You can look at the word vegan as referring to a diet. You can look at it referring to a philosophy. Most people look at it as a mixture of the two. But yeah, one word can mean multiple different things. But you have to look at the reason why this exists. Like, for example, look at the reason why a lot of vegans eat bivalves. And it's because the reason to be vegan, to have this word vegan exist, is for sentient animals. This exists because something can suffer, feel pain. Like veganism doesn't exist to save flowers. It exists because something can suffer, and something that can experience life can have its life removed. And so if you find something that can't, so bivalves, clams and oysters and mussels and all these things, they are classified as animals for whatever reason it fits into being an animal, but there's no brain, there's no central nervous system. They cannot feel pain. They cannot observe things. So there's no harm in their death. There's nothing being perceived by them. They are not sentient. So to say something has some original definition and it has to stick to that definition for all time is just it's just kind of silly. So it's good to look at, why are we doing this? Why can things change? Why can new information make something change? And it's because this it's not like I'm just wanting to hijack this word and change the complete meaning of it. It's because this thing exists about sentient beings, and to most people, it's referring to non-human sentient beings. Human issues are separate, and those are just their own issues. But so these are non-human sentient beings that are affected by this. So if the goal is something like if there's a dog here and you kick the dog and the dog's in pain and you had no reason to kick the dog, this is bad. Whereas if you're starving and there's no food whatsoever, and then you have this last little bit of food and a dog's coming at your food and going to take your last bit of food, and you kick the dog because you need your food, then you'd go, okay, this is reasonable. So kicking the dog pointlessly was not reasonable. So we're also looking at factory farms going, none of this is reasonable. We're looking at all these different things. So the reason I point out that veganism can't be debunked is because veganism exists to care more about sentient animals. If we can successfully care about sentient animals to the point of not harming a single one, then that would be great. That would be the goal. But anything in between that and what we currently have would still be something worth having a movement for. The majority of meat comes from factory farms, which means people are complacent with this idea of animals being harmed for no reason. So you have this movement to change that. But if there's going to be deaths no matter what, deaths in crops, deaths in whatever, hunting, all these various different things, then the goal would be to have the least amount of suffering. So maybe it's not best to call Jason and JD here vegans, but it would be something like that. It would be that you have this idea of something existing. It doesn't even need to have a name. It's from here to here, and this exists, and this is for people that are somewhat on the spectrum of caring about animals so much they'll sacrifice their own lives, like Vegan Gains would, all the way to whatever extent of animals being harmed, but somebody trying their absolute best to not harm them and to harm as few as possible because they care, which would not include any factory farming. You have this like wide range, and we don't have to give it a name, but what I'm saying is I'm on there. Every vegan I know is on there. JD's on there, and Jason's on there. Do we have to call that veganism? Not exactly. But what are you countering? When you say you're countering veganism, are you countering this philosophy about caring about animals? Because you are and you aren't. Because I don't know about you, Jason, if your actions just happen to fall that way, where JD claims he cares about animals. So you're not countering that idea of why veganism exists, but you don't like the idea of veganism for whatever various reason. I can't even fathom exactly what it is to make somebody an anti-vegan. But anyway, so hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that comes across right.